Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 239 of the podcast, or you're joining us live on Facebook or YouTube. Today is Sunday, May 2nd. Can't believe it's May already. You're just kind of flying by. A whole lot going on. A whole lot of MMA stuff. Just me today. No Jeff the Animal Wilson, probably. He had a lot of stuff to do today. I sent him the link to join into the show, just in case he found a spare moment to jump on and share his opinions. I know he was excited about the fights last night. We were texting during the fights. But as of right now, I cannot promise the animal to you. What I can promise is that our friends at Team Reaper have your MMA on the Rocks merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops. So you can get those at reaper1.co. You can see the website if you're watching on YouTube. It's right below me, right below my face here. So you have something else to look at. I'll also put the links in the show notes as always. You don't have to get MMA on the Rocks gear. You can get a t-shirt and support a fighter, a UFC fighter, all the way down to local circuit fighters. Our friends at Team Reaper put the money right in the pockets of the fighters. So if you're one of these people that's always saying the fighters deserve to be paid more, well, help them out a little bit. Help them get their name out there by wearing their t-shirt. You also have MMA gear, training gloves, sparring gloves, jiu-jitsu gis, backpacks, all that stuff. Everything you need to start your pursuit of being in the UFC. Use the promo code MMA Rocks 10. Get yourself 10% off. And that's that, folks. So, all right, let's start at the beginning, shall we? So, UFC on ESPN 23, back at the Apex. So, live audience for the pay-per-view last week, and then back to the Apex, no crowd this week. I don't notice a difference. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, and people seem to think that the fights were more exciting because there was a crowd last week. I don't think that's necessarily the case, because we had some amazing fights on this card, like some of the best fights of the year so far, and some of them were on the prelims with no crowd. So to me, the crowd doesn't make a difference. I don't typically have the volume on. I did have it on last night because I enjoy Paul Felder and Michael Bisping on the commentary. Not that I dislike the other commentators. I don't have a whole lot of opinions on them, but I just don't like to be influenced by people while I'm watching the fights, because I feel like you could be swayed one way. There was one fight last night, I can't remember which one it was, and that's exactly what happened. The commentators were saying somebody was landing a bunch of shots, and I just wasn't seeing it. I was seeing it the other way. So I don't like being influenced by the commentary. That's why I tend to watch with the volume off, and that's probably why crowd, no crowd doesn't really make a difference to me. The only difference is, like, in between fights, they're showing shots of drunk people as opposed to just an empty arena with neon lights. So that's the only difference to me. You guys can disagree with me if you want. That's fine. We're here to have a dialogue. I'm open to it. I'm totally fine with people disagreeing with me. I think that's a rare quality. I'm not looking to have like angry debates with people, but I'm always open to opposing opinions. So a lot of people were saying, here's what I was hearing, is that UFC 261 was so good that there was no way this card could deliver. And I never really understand that mentality, because I watch every card. So there could be like a really awesome one, and it's not going to make me think like, oh, the next one's not going to be good. The next one, it's its own thing, It's like if you go to the movies and you see like a really good movie and you think like, oh, there's no way this other movie could be this good. It's like, well, they're different. They're different movies. They tell a different story. There's different things going on. You're comparing apples to oranges, or apples to potatoes, or whatever that saying is. In any case, I thought this card was fantastic, top to bottom. There, it was only one finish on the prelims, I believe, but I thought those prelim fights were awesome. So if you guys missed those, I'm definitely going to go over those. But I have to start at the top with Jiri Prochazka. I've been telling people about this guy for a while. He was a champion over on Ryzen. I'm sure you heard them telling the story about how the UFC offered him a contract and he said no because he wanted to make sure he was ready when he came over to the UFC. Well, guess what, folks? He's ready. And just yesterday at the gym, I show up for sparring on Saturday mornings, and usually people are always asking me like, hey, what are the good fights to watch? And nobody seemed to know who Jiri Prochazka was, and it didn't really surprise me. He's not a well-known fighter. He will be after last night. He's only had one fight in the UFC, and I believe it was before the pandemic, I want to say, or maybe it was during. See, that's how like kind of muddled with everything else it was. Obviously a lot of people know Dominick Reyes because he gave John Jones fits, and then went on to get knocked out by Jan Blachowicz for the vacant title. Dana White said the winner of this fight is going to get a title shot. That seemed to be news to Prochazka after the fight, and I love everything about this guy, man. I like Dominick Reyes as well, and I like the way he fights, but I was looking forward to this fight because of Jiri, because of how wild he is. He's so unpredictable. It's a beautiful thing to watch. Like, you don't know if he's just going to end somebody's night or, if he's going to get knocked out, because he fights with this like looping style. There's no real rhythm to it. He's definitely a unique fighter. He's definitely a unique guy. I mean, you've seen the clips of him like out in the woods with no shirt on, just like screaming in a mountain. There's also, I think he did like an Instagram live where he was just sitting in a lake meditating for 10 hours straight. There's a lot of intriguing things about this guy, but let's start with the way he fights. So he throws a lot of looping shots. He fights with his hands down, and he says that the reason for it is that it invigorates him in the cage. So the guy is in a cage fight with another trained killer, and he needs like an additional stimulus to get his adrenaline going. So he's got to drop his hands. Like, it's not dangerous enough. I mean, it's like, this is like, you're going like bear hunting, and it's not enough to go bear hunting with a rifle. So you're just going to go bear hunting with a buck knife. That's it. That's the best analogy I could come up with off the top of my head. So he likes to fight with his hands down. He likes, adding an additional element of danger, I guess, against a guy in Dominick Reyes who's a killer. Now, when people were asking me about this fight, I was talking about how excited I was to see Jiri, but I was also talking about how Dominick Reyes had the ability to finish him, because Dominick Reyes throws fantastic strikes right down the pipe. And that's the trick to beating somebody who throws looping shots. Yeah, he fights at a weird rhythm and he's kind of unpredictable. But, not totally, because he blitzes and then he pauses. And when Reyes was countering during those pauses, that's when he was having the most success. And when he was throwing straight punches, that's when he was having even more success. Now, in between rounds, I heard Dominick corner tell him, go to the 3-2, which means a hook and a straight. So a hook with the right hand, because Dominick Reyes is a southpaw, and then a straight left hand. I don't know why they were calling for that instead of a 1-2, which would be a jab with the right hand and then the straight left. Because the way you counter looping shots is to throw shots right down the middle, because there's no guard there. When somebody's throwing a looping punch, their face is open on one side at least. So what you have to do is just beat them to the punch, so to speak, and throw a straight jab down the middle. And that's what's going to stop those looping shots. And Reyes was having success with that. But when he was throwing looping shots back, Jiri was just faster than him. So he was getting there quicker. The quickest way to get from A to B is a straight line. Once you start taking detours, it's going to take a little bit longer. And then, whoever's faster is going to win that one. Let's talk about the finish, obviously. So Prochazka gets Reyes up against the cage, which he did quite often. He had him backing up pretty much this entire fight. And then he's throwing straight elbows, stepping into them. They were so nasty. He lands one and then kind of takes a step with his right foot and just unexpectedly and so quickly turned with that spinning elbow. And when they talked to him after the fight, he didn't even remember which shot finished him. He was like, maybe it was a spinning elbow. Oh yeah, it was. So it was crazy. And it put Dominick Reyes out cold. Here's a guy who has been in there with some monsters at light heavyweight. I mean, went 25 minutes with John Jones, who we all know throws really hard elbows. He throws elbows like they're punches because he's got those long arms. So that's a highlight reel finish, like, for all time. They're going to be showing that forever. Every time Prochazka fights, the people are going to be talking about that elbow. It was such an incredible finish. And here's what I was saying last night is I don't know what's scarier, the way this guy fights or how fast he calms down after fighting like an absolute maniac. Because here he is in there with Dominick Reyes, chasing him down for 10 minutes, throwing all these wild strikes, finishing him with a spectacular spinning elbow, and then he's totally calm. Like, he just shuts it off. And I don't know anybody in real life who has that much control over their emotions and over their adrenaline. And then he was sitting at the desk with Karen Bryant, Tyron Woodley, and Michael Chiesa, and he's sitting there like he's on The View, like just getting interviewed about some bullshit movie he's got coming out or something. And I'll tell you what I love most about this guy, how he responded to getting 2 bonuses. So this fight was the fight of the night, so he gets 50 grand for that. And then he got a performance of the night bonus for the finish. That's another 50 grand. So they tell him, you got 2 bonuses. You got $100,000. And he was like, oh, that's good, because I got to pay some money towards my house. I've been meaning to do that. Just like stone face. They told him he just won an extra $100,000. And he's just like, all right. Meanwhile, and he didn't even know that he won it until they told him. Everybody else is like, they have a finish like that, and they're like, Dana, please, 50 G's. They give this guy 2 bonuses, and he's like, oh, yeah, that's cool. So let me tell you some more about how I'm a martial artist. And like, just went on like nothing happened. They just put 100 grand in his pocket. And he's like, yeah, I'm really all about being a martial artist, and I'm still learning. So, maybe next time I'll get 3 bonuses. And then they told him that he was going to get the winner of Jan Blachowicz and Glover Teixeira. And he's like, oh, wow. Yeah, I would love to do that. Just like so casual about it. Yeah, I would love to fight for the world championship. Yeah, I think that would be, Jan would be a really tough fight, but he's got to get through Glover Teixeira. A lot of people think he's too old, but I don't think he is. And then all of this is like totally calm after just putting on like one of the most spectacular knockouts we've seen in a long time. It's probably going to be a contender for knockout of the year, I would imagine, even though we're only in May. Nobody's going to forget this one anytime soon, except all the people who thought this card wasn't going to deliver, so they didn't watch it. Fools. So yeah, that would be awesome to see Prochazka fight against, either Blachowicz or Teixeira. The UFC may be regretting giving that opportunity to Glover, because, you would want to book this fight with the champ immediately, because you can start sharing that clip of that knockout everywhere. And then, you could build up the title fight. You have a guy coming in to challenge for the title who's actually a bigger draw than the current champ. If you build it up right. My buddy Dave Shevley wants to know if he rejected coming to the UFC. Yeah, I was just talking about that, Dave. How he was fighting over in Rizin, which is the Japanese organization. It's the equivalent of what Pride was several years ago. And he was offered a UFC contract, and he said no because he wasn't ready to fight the best in the world. A lot of people would argue that the best in the world are also fighting in Rizin and in ONE and a lot of these Asian promotions. And we saw that that's true last night because Jiri came in and made everybody aware of who he is, because a lot of people didn't know. A lot of people know who Cub Swanson is, though. Co-main event here. I know a lot of people were rooting for Cub. How could you not? The guy is just, he's a legend, man. He's just such a likable guy, family guy. He's so, soft-spoken, well-spoken. And then he's put on so many great performances over the years. Like, everybody probably has a favorite Cub Swanson fight. And you could find like 5 hardcore MMA fans, and they may not all even pick the same one. They may have a favorite Cub Swanson fight. For me, it's Cub Swanson and Do Ho Choi. It's one of the best fights I've ever seen. That was a wild fight. For somebody else, it might be something else. But Giga Chikadze, man, I've been telling you guys about him for a long time. He comes from the kickboxing world. He has crazy fast kicks, especially at this weight. I mean, at featherweight, everybody's fast, but this guy's got a different level. He's got a different gear in those kicks. And Cub found that out quick. He hit Cub with a couple of kicks early on. I mean, early on, this fight ended at 1 minute and 3 seconds, but in the beginning, he threw a couple and Cub blocked him with his arm, but he figured out real quick he didn't want to get hit with those. You could tell he was immediately uncomfortable once Giga touched him. And then Giga wound up getting underneath Cub's guard. So Cub went to block with his arm, and he was bringing his elbow down, and Giga was swinging the kick up to the liver, which is the best way to reach the liver, because it's hard to block it when it's coming up underneath the elbow when you're trying to block it with your arm, do an arm block, which is not ideal, not an ideal way to block a kick either, because you don't want to get kicked in the arm and then have to fight with a fractured arm or something. But Cub goes to check the kick with his arm, didn't get far enough down, and Giga is able to slip that kick right underneath. If you've never been hit in the liver, I can't think of a way to explain it unless you've ever experienced like a sleep paralysis or something like that. Your body just doesn't respond, just doesn't work. And the fact that Cub was able to actually move forward and grab a single leg just speaks to how fucking tough that man is. Because what happens is your liver is your filter for your body, right? So all the bad stuff you put in your body, not that Cub Swanson's putting a lot of bad stuff in his body, but anything like sugar, and it could be any kind of sugar, it all gets filtered through your liver, and the liver's cleaning all that stuff out in there. So when there's an impact to the liver, it just releases all that toxic shit into your bloodstream, and your body's like, whoa, I don't know what's going on here, but we better take a break. Let's just shut everything off and regroup. So that's what happens essentially, like when you get hit in the liver, because your liver's filtering out all these toxins in your body, and all of a sudden it's just in your blood, and your body gets overwhelmed, and it's like, hold on, we need a second here, and it just shuts off. So that's what Cub Swanson was going through when he got hit with that kick. And Giga was going to that body kick over and over, and Cub was aware of it. He didn't like it. He was very uncomfortable. So he was going to block. And what would have happened if that fight continued is he probably would have went to the body kick 1 or 2 more times, and then Cub would have been holding his hands low, and then he would have went to the head kick. That's just, it's a typical kickboxing strategy, time tested, old as time. Since people have been kicking each other, this has been a strategy. Go body, head. Once somebody starts worrying about the body shot and bringing their hands down, then the head is exposed. And if they keep protecting their head, then nobody can take too many shots to the liver. And Chikadze is so good at finding that liver. This is an interesting thing in the featherweight division, because here's a guy who came over. He had all these kickboxing skills, and I think there was a small window of time where people could have possibly exposed the holes in his game and gotten him to the ground and held him down, or even possibly submitted him. But now he's got so much confidence in his ability to stay on his feet. That he's able to throw those kicks. Some of you might hear my daughter trying to break into the room right now. And bless my wife's heart for dragging her away and keeping her downstairs. So now he has the confidence to start throwing more of those kicks. That's a dangerous thing for these featherweights, man. He said he wanted either Max Holloway or Calvin Kattar. That's a fun fight. Either one of those. I don't see either one of those guys wanting to back down, but it's also, high risk, low reward for fighting a guy in Chikadze who not a lot of people are aware of yet. They will be soon. And, not a lot of people are going to want to fight this guy. It was a good night for the fighters from Georgia. So Chikadze, Georgian fighter, and Merab Dvalishvili Stamann earlier on the card. I'll get to that fight in a minute. But yeah, these Georgian fighters they're a tough breed, man, and they're coming to take over. So it's a fun time, if you're and I know it means a lot to the people in Georgia as well. Chikadze was saying in the post-fight interview that it's actually Easter in Georgia right now, and it's one of the biggest celebrations of the year. And he said that he thought that people back home were probably celebrating him and Merab's victories just as much as they were celebrating Easter. So that's really an awesome thing. When two guys can represent their country in such a meaningful way, and make such a big impact on an entire nation. That's a really powerful thing, and it's really awesome. And Chikadze is awesome. Cub Swanson will bounce back. He'll get back in there. I don't think these shots, as devastating as they are, there's not a whole lot of permanent damage. At least I'm not a scientist or anything, but there's not a whole lot that I'm aware of. So, me without my medical degree, I convinced myself that whiskey's healthy for you. In any case, yeah, Cub Swanson will get back in there. So let's go down the card. Ion Cutelaba and Dustin Jacoby, split draw. I saw this one going this way. One judge's scorecard confused me a little bit. I thought the way to judge this one was a 10-8 round for Cutelaba in the first. He almost finished the fight. No brainer. And then Jacoby, I thought, once he weathered the storm and Cutelaba slowed down, he started picking him apart, keeping him at a distance with that jab. I think he probably could have finished Cutelaba if he followed up the jab. A couple of times he was sticking the jab in his face and had him wobbled a little bit with it. If he just followed with the two down the pipe, he might have put him away. But, maybe he didn't want to get too close because he didn't want Cutelaba to get a hold of him. This was a fun fight, man. Cutelaba is becoming a guy that people are talking about for the wrong reasons, though. Just doing stupid shit at the weigh-ins. Here's a guy who has been a top contender, who was a scary guy when he first came on the scene in the UFC, and then just started doing a bunch of dumb things, grabbing Jacoby's neck at the weigh-in. Like, what the hell is this guy thinking? We're gonna lose the ability to have these cool face-offs and have these cool weigh-ins if guys keep doing dumb shit like this, like we saw with Jeremy Stevens a week or two ago when he grabbed Jakar close and the guy was so dehydrated, he gave him whiplash and he had to pull out of the fight. Like, don't put your hands on the guy. Like, you have a contract. You have like, you have free reign to actually harm another human being for 15 minutes. Just wait until that 15 minutes starts. But I guess not everybody is in as control of their emotions as Jiri Prochazka. You know, some of these guys get hot-headed. They're cranky because they're cutting weight, and then they make stupid decisions. But the fight was great. Jacoby's a tough dude, man. A lot of people would have been finished in that first round. And that's Cutelaba's strategy always. Come blazing out of the gate, try to finish you in the first, and then get up on the scorecards and just kind of try to hang on, maybe finish you later. But he's like, I don't want to think about a plan B. Like, let's just go with plan A and just maul people. We're going to maul people right out of the gate, and then I'll figure it out from there. Obviously, you didn't have a plan when you went into the weigh-in either. It was like, all you got to do is show up and have your picture taken. And, it does build the fight when stuff like this happens. But then if there's no fight, it won't matter. Like what happened with Jakar Close and Jeremy Stevens. So don't do that shit. Sean Strickland, put on a striking clinic against Krzysztof Jotko. Jotko couldn't really get anything going against Strickland. And Strickland, who was coming forward a lot, he's usually more of a counter striker, is pressuring forward a lot in this fight. He said Jotko was hard to hit, but watching the fight, it didn't seem like it was. So Strickland looked good there. Merab and Cody Stamann, this was such a fun fight. And they always say, like, when you have two really strong wrestlers, what you usually get is a striking battle, which we got a little bit of, but we saw some fun wrestling too. Merab hit some nice double legs. I thought it was a close fight, but obviously Merab, his cardio and conditioning were the X factor here. He was able to push the pace. He was able to get 7 or 8 takedowns compared to Stamann's 1. Which is impressive that he was able to take Cody Stamann down. For those who don't realize, this dude is a stud of an MMA wrestler. And he got Merab down once too. What I didn't like from Merab is he went for this, it's called a fireman's carry. So if you picture how a firefighter would carry somebody out of a fire, which they actually don't do this anymore because they're carrying all the gear and stuff, and carrying a human body on top is too much pressure on the spine. You could actually injure yourself, end up stuck in a fire. That's neither here nor there. I had to give you a little bit of background information as my former experience as a firefighter there. But anyway, a fireman's carry is basically a high crotch entry. So you go put your shoulder deep in between your opponent's legs, favoring one leg, and then you basically, snap them down and send them to the ground. It's an effective takedown for wrestling because in wrestling, your posture is different. You're bent over at the hips. So there's a little bit more weight forward, and it's easier to get guys down like that without getting your arm trapped. In MMA, it's a little bit different because people are standing more upright with a lower center of gravity. So it's easier to defend, and it's also easier to tie up the arms. Once you put your arm in a high crotch, if you're not immediately switching to a double leg and you're leaving it in there, you're kind of asking to get crucifixed in MMA. And that's kind of what happened with Merab. He got stuck, I think it was twice in this position. And then Stamann even took his back off of one of them. But, Merab is just so good at scrambling. He got away with it. But, if you try to go for that fireman's carry and you get crucifixed by like a really good jiu-jitsu specialist, you're really going to regret that. I do not recommend the fireman's carry as a takedown tactic for MMA. or jiu-jitsu for that matter. There's some things that just work in wrestling, and it's great to know them. It's great to drill them, but they're just not advisable to do in MMA. And the fireman's carry is one of those. Just like the outside single leg takedown is one of those, because if you go too low, you end up getting your back taken. If you go too high, you end up getting guillotined. So not advisable. Whenever people ask me for good takedowns for jiu-jitsu or MMA, it's always the double, or it's always the inside single. As far as takedowns going in on the changing levels, going in on the legs, obviously there's body locks and everything like that, which we're going to talk about with this next fight. But I just want to say again, with Merab, like, I don't know who's going to want to fight this guy, because this is the worst kind of person to fight, in my opinion, because he's not going to break. He's going to be in your face the whole time. He's going to push you until your lungs are burning. And there's almost nothing you can do to the guy short of shutting his lights off to get him away from you, to just get a second to breathe. And that's what happened with Cody Stamann. I don't think that Stamann's skills are even worse than Merab's. I think Merab just fights with such tenacity that it's just too much for anybody to keep up with. I mean, the guy has 5 lungs, and I hear this from people who train with him. They say, like, I've heard Ray Longo say multiple times, like, he can't stop the guy from sparring. The guy will spar 5 rounds, and then he'll go to another gym and spar some more. And then, like, he'll see him on an Airdyne bike and then hitting a heavy bag. Like, the guy's just nonstop all the time. Now, is that a sustainable practice? Probably not, but he's a scary fucking dude right now. And I can't think of anybody in that top 10 who's going to want to get matched up with him. Another win for, like I said, the Georgian fighters coming through big time on this card. So congrats to them. All right, so that's the main card. Let's get into the prelims. So the top of the prelims, Luana Pinheiro and Randa Markos. This was a fun fight until it wasn't. Pinheiro had some awesome head and arm throws. She's been doing judo since she was like 2 years old. And then, unfortunately, she had Randa Markos down. And here's why I'm okay with it being a disqualification, because Randa threw several kicks. It wasn't just one. So she threw one kick, and it hit Pinheiro in the chest to try and get her off it. But then when Pinheiro came back down, Randa threw an up kick again, while Pinheiro was grounded, kicked her in the face and knocked her out. And it's unfortunate because she fell smart. She untied her knees from underneath her before she fell back. So it kind of looked like a delay. But you got to remember, the girl's been doing judo forever. She knows how to fall. Her body knows how to fall safely. So her body could very well unwind itself while she's unconscious, just because of the muscle memory. She's used to being thrown day in and day out in judo competition and practice, that her body knows how to fall the right way. If you fall straight back with your knees bent under you, you're going to tear something in your knees. You're going to tear a ligament. We saw it happen to Mirko Krokop when he got knocked out by Gabriel Gonzaga and his leg got bent behind him gruesomely. If you've never seen that and you're into like gruesome knockouts where people get injured, go check that one out. So she untangles her legs and then falls backwards, which kind of makes it look like she was, playing it up, taking a dive. And I know Paul Felder had kind of commented on that. I saw a few other people on social media saying, she was faking it, comparing her to Aljamain Sterling, until she's on the ground and she's clearly concussed. And she says to her coaches, "Did I lose?" At which point, the referee, Mark Smith, did the right thing and and called the fight. And he called it a disqualification because, whether it was intentional or not, Randa threw an illegal strike. She's supposed to be aware of the rules. She's supposed to be in control of her body. And, she threw an illegal strike that knocked her opponent unconscious. So I think the disqualification was fair here. It could have been ruled a no contest, but, does Pinheiro deserve to have a no contest on her record because she was fouled? No. Does Randa necessarily deserve to have a loss on her record because, she kind of slipped? Maybe not, but more so than Pinheiro getting the no contest on her record because of something that was out of her control. Randa, it was kind of out of her control because she kind of slipped and, threw the kick at her face. It was a powerful kick. Anybody who's saying that Pinheiro was faking or playing it up or whatever has obviously never been kicked in the face at close range like that. There's just so much leverage when somebody has their back on the mat and they're able to push off the mat and kick you right in the mouth. It was unfortunate because it was a really fun fight up to that point. And the other thing about it too is you have to realize that Pinheiro is a judo competitor. I don't know how many judokas but these are not people who lay down and try to take a free victory. These are the type of people who go and compete all day, will have 15 matches in a day, get thrown on their head, tape their fingers back to their hand, and then go out and have another 10 matches. So they're definitely not the type to say oh no, I was fouled, let me just lay here. No. I don't know that much about Luana as a fighter or as a person, but you tell me she's been doing judo since she was 2. That's all I need to know that she wasn't faking shit when she took that illegal strike. She had to be carried out of the cage by one of her coaches. She was carried into the back. Probably not advisable. If you're not able to walk, you should probably be on a stretcher. Somebody shouldn't be carrying you. Much like the example I gave before with the fireman's carry, firemen shouldn't be carrying people out of a building on their back. For those interested, the protocol now is to actually tie some webbing around people and drag them out because they might get injured doing that, but at least they'll be alive. And at least you're not going to break your back trying to carry them out. So fun firefighter facts here on MMA on the Rocks. Rare show today, not drinking any alcohol, even though it's 1 PM. I very well should be, but I gotta drive after this. So I don't drink and drive, folks. Neither should you. Firefighter facts and PSAs here on MMA on the Rocks. Of course, I encourage everybody to drink alcohol regularly, but do it safely, will you? I'm going to breeze over the rest of the prelims for the most part. I'm just going to make a few pit stops along the way. TJ Brown, Kai Kamaka, very back and forth fight. This was a really fun one. TJ Brown edging out the split decision by the end of it. I heard a lot of people saying that this was the fight of the night up to this point. I would agree if the Felipe Colares and Luke Sanders fight didn't happen, but I'll get to that in a second. Luana Carolina split decision over Poliana Botelho. Loma Lookboonmee getting unanimous decision over Sam Hughes. Lookboonmee is a fun fighter. She's going to be really good. She's going to be a problem in this division once she tightens up her jiu-jitsu a little bit because she's good at getting people to the ground on the feet. She's great at controlling the range of the fight. And then she's awesome in that clinch. I love her clinch work and Muay Thai clinch work. And I can speak on this because I happen to be a coach of Muay Thai clinch. If you don't train it, it's very effective against you. It's not the best for taking people down in MMA because it's very limited. You can't hook the legs. You can't, step your hip across the body for throws and things like that. So you're kind of limited. And it's also effective because in Muay Thai, the other person's standing up straight as well. They're not dropping their hips, like a wrestler would or like somebody would to stop a judo throw. But the Thai clinch is good at getting into that grappling position so that you can set up moves that are illegal in Muay Thai but are illegal in MMA, like those inside trips that Lookboonmee was using against Hughes, and they were beautiful. Once she got on top, she needs to work on her hips being a little heavier and things like that. But once she does that and tightens those things up, she's going to be a real problem because a lot of people aren't going to want to stand with her because of the Muay Thai background. Andreas Michailidis, unanimous decision over Vular. Vular, another traditional Muay Thai style guy who, just didn't really adapt that style very well to MMA. Muay Thai is very effective in MMA, but you got to change some things up. You can't fight, traditional Thai style in a cage. It just doesn't work. But if you have that background, there are a lot of useful tools that you can bring into the cage. The fight of the night for me, the main event was so exciting, but I would have given the performance bonus to Prochazka. I would have given fight of the night to Felipe Colares and Luke Sanders. This fight was incredible because Luke Sanders almost finishes Colares in the first round. Very well could have been a 10-8 round. He was beating the hell out of him. And then Colares comes back and in the second round almost finishes Luke Sanders. And he probably would have finished him if he didn't stop to talk to the referee and ask him to stop the fight, which you should never do. You should never worry about what the referee is doing. You should pretend like the referee is not even there until he tells you to stop, or until he tells you to stop grabbing the cage, or until he tells you to watch the back of the head, until he issues like some kind of instruction that's going to keep the fighter safe. You should not be addressing the referee. This is a one-way street. The referee addresses you. If you're a fighter, you should not even acknowledge that they're in the cage. You just do what you have to do until they tell you to do something, until they communicate with you. Then you stop whatever you're doing and you listen. Okay. And then the third round, Colares edged it out. So tough loss for Sanders, man. This was such a fun fight. There were some explosive takedowns. There was some nasty ground and pound. There was wild striking. These guys were fighting at such a crazy pace. If you guys missed the prelims, definitely go back and check out this fight. So awesome card. I mean, from the first fight to the last fight, so much excitement. People were complaining so many decisions on the prelims. People will complain about anything. If you give them $100, they'll say, "Why didn't you give me 200?" People just choose to be unhappy. All right, so that's it. We'll put a bow on UFC on ESPN 23. Awesome card. And then next week we got coming up UFC on ESPN. You guessed it, 24. It's headlined by strawweights Marina Rodriguez, Michelle Waterson. An impressive victory here is going to be important because, in this division we have obviously the champ now, Rose Namajunas, who didn't take any damage really in her fight last week. I don't think Weili Zhang will get an immediate rematch. And, the next obvious choice is Joanna Jędrzejczyk to challenge for the title, but she's already lost to Rose twice, so that doesn't make sense. So a strong showing here 2 weeks after Rose wins the title, and a good solid call out from one of these girls could mean a lot. This is an interesting fight. Michelle Waterson obviously has been at the top of this division for a long time and is even undersized for this division, but it happens to be the smallest division available. Rodriguez has only been beaten once, but she's gone to 2 draws, one of them with Randa Markos, the other with Cynthia Calvillo. And she did lose to Carla Esparza, but it was a split decision. So she's never been finished. She's well-rounded. She's got power. She's got 6 knockouts, which is a lot for a strawweight. You don't see a whole lot of knockouts in this fight. But again, Michelle Waterson, underrated toughness, really creative striking. She likes to go to that head and arm throw as well, which is a risky one for MMA because you get your back taken. This is an interesting fight. Don't ask me who to put your money on because I don't like telling people what to do with their money. I don't like telling people how to run their businesses, and I don't like telling people what to do with their money. When they ask me, I'm always hesitant to give opinions. So don't ask me. The co-main event was supposed to be Cowboy Cerrone and Diego Sanchez, but Diego Sanchez was released from the UFC. This was weird, man, because Diego Sanchez has been hanging out with this spiritual guru or whatever he is to him, Joshua Fabia, who runs some kind of spiritual guidance school. It's called like Think for Yourself and Other People or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what this guy does. He's very strange. He's had very uncomfortable interactions with fighters, with commentators, with fighters who are commentators. So I guess what he did was he called the UFC and he asked for all of Diego Sanchez's medical records. And I guess they didn't turn them over to him. And he made a big deal out of this. And then he released a video of him in the fighter meeting, where so for those who don't, let me back up a little bit. For those who don't know, every time there's a fight card, the fighters will basically get interviewed by the commentary team, where the commentary team will find out what happened during their training camp, what's going on in their personal lives, to have little bits of information to talk about when the action slows down. And usually it's the play-by-play guy, like last night was Brendan Fitzgerald, who will add these things in. They'll say like, oh, so-and-so is looking forward to spending time with his 10-year-old daughter after this fight's over. So those little facts that they kind of slip in there when there's lulls in the action come from the fighter meetings, where they're just kind of, getting to see what their headspace is, how their training was, how they're feeling about the fight, and, just having things to talk about. So in this meeting, Diego Sanchez is standing there silent. Fabia is, I guess, criticizing the commentary team for the way they talk about Diego. And Paul Felder was basically just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And completely shut him down. So then I guess the next thing was the UFC was asking if Diego Sanchez had any mental trauma or something. And I guess Diego talked to his lawyers and they told him, don't say anything like that. Don't comment on it, because if you say you don't have any mental problems, then they're going to use that against you if you ever try to sue them for the abuse you took in your 17-year career as a UFC fighter. Man, I just overloaded myself by recapping all of this because it's just so much. There's so many layers to this, and we could get deep into it. But let's just say that this spiritual guy that's been hanging around Diego Sanchez is really toxic, and the UFC didn't want to put up with him. So they cut Diego Sanchez right before, what was supposed to be his swan song with Cowboy. So now Cowboy's still listed on the card. Kevin Holland is asking for the fight. I would have been more interested in it if Kevin Holland didn't just step up and fight Marvin Vettori and, just get out wrestled twice within a few weeks. It's like, I don't really want to see you back in there right now. Like, go take some time and go do something else. You don't have to step up every time a fight falls apart. Like, that doesn't need to be your thing. You know, find another thing to be your thing, not that. So I don't know if they're going to find somebody to replace Diego. It's a shame, especially because, you saw the weird kind of change in Diego's behavior when he got paired up with this guy. And I'm not an advocate of this kind of thing ever. It's unsafe to have somebody in your corner giving you advice in a fight that has no fight experience. Having someone in their corner who doesn't have fight experience, that would be like Tom Brady letting his wife coach the Buccaneers. Fun fights on this card. Neil Magny and Jeff Neal. That's going to be a really fun one. Two guys that are really well-rounded. I would give Magny the edge in the grappling department, but Jeff Neal has really good takedown defense. Jeff Neal hits a lot harder, but Neil Magny can take a shot as well as anybody in this welterweight division. So that's a really fun fight. Maurice Green, Markos Rogerio de Lima. That's a fun heavyweight scrap. And then I'll give you the sleeper pick. Gregor Gillespie making his comeback fight since the knockout loss to Kevin Lee. He's going to fight Diego Fidea. That's going to be a really awesome fight. I'm really looking forward to that one. I've been a fan of Gregor Gillespie for a long time. I love the way he fights. I love the tenacious wrestling, the endless cardio. The guy's an absolute freak, but Fidea is super tough. So it's gonna be a fun one. Amanda Hebas making a quick turnaround against the queen of quick turnarounds, Angela Hill. Both of them fought like last night, probably, and they're gonna fight each other on Saturday. Ben Rothwell and Felipe Lins. That's gonna be a really fun heavyweight scrap. Another fun heavyweight, Philip Hawes, who's just like a monster of a man, getting in there against Kyle Dawkins, who fights like a monster of a man. He's got Kyle Dawkins fights the way Phil Hawes looks. Like Phil Hawes looks like a bodybuilder, and it looks like he could beat up a tank. And Kyle Dawkins looks like just a dude who probably can beat up a tank. That's a really fun fight too. That's my other sleeper pick. So not a lot of people talking about that one. Christian Aguilera, and I must be tired still from staying up late from this card because I read that as Christina Aguilera. That's just, I don't know. I'm a genie in a bottle. Come and set me free. I can't keep doing these late night cards, folks. Stayed up till like 1:30 in the morning, and then, the little one had me up early. So, the last one I'll give you, Tafon Chikwi is going in there against Jun Young Park. This is the first fight on the card, and Chikwi is 5-0. Two of his 5 fights are in the UFC. One on the Contender Series where he won by like a head kick knockout, I think. And then, his UFC debut. So after his first 3 fights, like nobody wanted to fight this guy. So they had to put him on a Contender Series just to get him an opponent. That's how scary this dude is. And he's from Cameroon, just like Francis Ngannou, except he's like a middleweight version of him. So he's somebody to keep your eye on. Tafon Chikwi. Jun Young Park, a little bit more experienced. 16 fights under his belt, 12 wins out of those. This is a fun card next week. A lot of fights that like on paper might not make you think, but then if you take the time to think about them, they're going to be really exciting. Some really fun heavyweight scraps on here. Yeah. So that's it. I'm going to call it here because starting to lose my voice a little bit. It's tough to talk by myself for an hour. So if you guys want to hassle Jeff the Animal Wilson for not making it on the show today, you can do so at animal_Wilson on Twitter and Instagram. You guys can get a hold of me at MMA on the Rocks everywhere on social media. If you want to grab some MMA on the Rocks merchandise, you can do so through our friends at Team Reaper. Reaper1.co is the website. I'll put the link in the show notes. As always, use the promo code MMA Rocks10. That's MMA ROCKS10. And please subscribe and share and comment and give me feedback, give me criticism. I'm always open to the criticism to a degree. I'm still going to do things my way, but, I might be willing to compromise on a few things. In any case, that's all we got. Until next time. Cheers, everybody.